Eye color is probably the most easily identifiable trait that a layperson could pick out if you ask them what makes somebody attractive. However, as you're going to come to see, there is a fault in equating your eye color, so the phenomenon of people preferring blue eyes being the most attractive color. This video, is going to likely ruffle some feathers, and I don't really know why, because it shouldn't, but people tend to take a lot of pride in their eye color being so unique to them, which is something I find a bit strange. A lot of you have probably even complimented others on their eye color, making them attractive. But at the end of the day, your dentofacial growth, your health indicators, cephalometric proportions, and general sexual dimorphism, so in simple speak, the way that your face functionally grows from childhood to adulthood, the facial development is actually more important, and it's more unique to how attractive you will become, or you are right now, rather than something like eye color, which is actually much more arbitrary. Trying to place eye color on the same plane as these things is actually a false equivalence. And that's because eye color, your eyebrow color, your hair color, your skin color are all examples of phenotypical expressions, meaning that from region to region, people have different amounts of melanin and these features change in color. But that doesn't mean somebody with blue eyes is any more healthier or questionably more attractive than somebody with green eyes. Conversely, it also means that just because you have blue eyes doesn't mean that there aren't unattractive people with also blue eyes. It doesn't give you an automatic benefit. And so somebody in the aesthetics line of work, it's very strange to me, this obsession we have with eye color, because there are people that are attractive with brown eyes, there are people that are unattractive with brown eyes, there are people that are attractive with blue eyes, there are people that are unattractive with blue eyes. But you know what separates the attractive from the unattractive examples in each of those demographics? It's the facial development, your jawline, your cheekbones, the structure of your midface. These are all characteristic things that actually matter, rather than the eye color itself. So hopefully you can appreciate the point I'm trying to make here before we preface this video on eye colors. Any preference that we give to certain eye colors or skin colors or eyebrows and hairs is because of social reasons, not because of universal reasons. A social reason might be Eurocentrism, where blue eyes, because of colonial past, could be seen as more attractive, but there is no physical advantage to having blue eyes in, say, the tropics, right? You would actually want to have darker eyes because of melanin. That's not to deny that having certain eye colors or skin colors does put you at a social advantage, but aesthetically speaking, there is no justifiable reason for why one certain eye color should be more attractive than the others. The color of your eye doesn't have any functional links to your survivability in the wild, but the shape of your jawline, the ability for being able to chew strong and hard foods do have actual links to your survivability. And so those are functional characteristics which are more tied to aesthetics rather than the eye color, which is a phenotypical characteristic, which is not as closely tied to aesthetics. So all of this is to say that there is no significant evidence to suggest that eye color is as influential as your jaw morphology or the shape, your skin quality, your midfacial and cheekbones, your nose, lips. Those structural components are actually more important than the colors of your phenotype. But that's not what we're trying to actually look at in this video anyways. Assuming all things are equal, does having blue eyes or colored eyes in general give you a social benefit? And if it does, is this also an aesthetic benefit? There are only two terms you really have to keep in mind here, and they are the iris of the eyes, colored proportion of the eye, and the sclera, or the whites of the eyes. These two are really the only varying colors, quote unquote, of the eye that can change due to melanin. A study by Feynman and Gill at the University of Wyoming sought to find sex differences in physical attractiveness preferences, and they really honed in on the coloration preferences, the eyes, hair, and complexion. Researchers studied the likes and dislikes of male and female respondents made on different eye colors. The results were quite significant, indicated by lower p-values. Females tended to prefer or like men with dark eyes, while men tended to prefer women with the lightest eyes. When it came to dislikes, men tended to dislike dark eyes on women and women with light eyes on men. Table 1 illustrates how prominent this preference really is, and it does make a lot of sense because there is a general preference for darker facial masculinity on men rather than for women. And women generally tend to have lighter phenotypical characteristics, like having lighter skin than their male counterparts and having slightly lighter eyes and also hair as well. Highlighted in yellow, the females actually preferred brown eyes the most in men, with dark blue a very close second. The males liked the light blue eyes the most in females, but brown was also a very close second. None of the other colors trailed too far behind. What this tells us is that the males are a little less discerning in their eye color preferences. While there is one caveat, black eyes were liked less than 4% of the time, and black is in very, very dark, and disliked the most in females by their male counterparts. Female subjects didn't seem to dislike black eyes as much, but again, that's not as significant. This was probably the most surprising part because women actually disliked light blue eyes in men a good amount more than they disliked black eyes. To some of the results from Feynman and Gill's study, there does seem to be a confirmation of the general idea of darker features being preferred in men and lighter features being preferred in women. This can be sort of demonstrated in women tending to dye their hair lighter, for example. There is an association between man and dark color shades and women and lighter color shades. You know, that saying tall, dark, and handsome. On eye color specifically, if we are generally talking about this, then brown eyes seem to be the most consistently attractive eye color, although socially speaking, we know that to not be the case, at least in the West. Still, there is no notifiable gap between the other colors, and the effect is probably not that influential to overall facial attractiveness, which is what I've been saying. People like to focus on eye color because it's all they really have. You know, people with blue eyes, just it makes it, they turn it into their whole personality. And what I actually think matters more is the structure of your face. Rather, when the participants are asked to make slight like versus dislike preferential judgments, they're really narrowing in on something that doesn't play into facial beauty as much when you consider the face as a whole. But when it comes to eye color, there's actually more to it than just the iris itself. Research by Grundle et al. Would align with the theory that there are other factors beyond the iris color. Their paper was titled "The Blue Eye Stereotype: Do Eye Color, Pupil Diameter, and Scleral Color Affect Attractiveness?" And what that shows that even within the eyes themselves, eye color is not that important when judging attractiveness. If we broaden that idea even more, eye color really is quite negligible in the grand scheme of things. Table 1 shows how attractiveness correlates with different factors in the eye area. The thing that jumps off the screen is that a person's real age highly negatively correlated with attractiveness. This means older equals less attractive eyes. Perceived age even more so showed older equals less attractive. It doesn't really come as a surprise that older looking eyes are not as attractive, because that's the general rule that's we've seen with all other facial characteristics, whether that be due to scleral show, upper eyelid exposure, eye glow, wrinkles, eye bags, lack of eyelashes, or a lack of brows. These are all aging characteristics which separate research papers and even in our videos we've shown do have an impact on facial aesthetics. A lot of correlation qualities like saturation, brightness, blueness, and hue of the iris were statistically non-significant. Surprisingly, the sclera or the white of the eye were negatively correlated with attractiveness. This makes sense as the sclera of the eye are much more of a health indicator than the iris color. Yellowish or darker scleral color can signal dehydration or other health effects. Blue scleral color can signal iron deficiency. Veins and other discolorations can be due to a lack of sleep or if you're on illicit drugs. If your sclera is not clear, then there is likely something negative going on with your health. So rather than the iris color, it seems that the scleral color is actually more important. Table 2 shows the attractiveness values of brown versus blue eyes. First, these results were not significant, but they also showed minimal differences. Blue eyes received ever so slightly higher assessments of attractiveness on average, but brown eyes have a slightly higher range, or the max possible attractiveness within one standard deviation. A big difference comes in Table 3, where blue eyes were overwhelmingly chosen when respondents were asked, which feature of this eye area do you find particularly attractive? These results were significant, so the respondents really did believe their answers to this question. The main takeaway from this study is that a younger looking eye is perceived as the most beautiful. As far as eye color, blue eyes were not rated more attractive than other colors. The results from Table 2 demonstrate something called the blue eye stereotype. People believe that blue eyes make eye areas attractive, but when it comes to the actual judgment in a very carefully controlled psychology test, the color of the iris did not really even play a factor. The true attractiveness of the eyes comes down to how youthful they look. A clear and healthy sclera is one of the factors, as the glow of the sclera can start to diminish with age. Blue eyes typically have less melanin, so they generally have a benefit compared to much darker eyes, especially in very dark sub-Saharan African skin types where they have more melanin, and this also causes a slight yellowing of the sclera, so it puts them at a disadvantage because that color is also similarly associated with sometimes cases of jaundice. When it comes to the eye color, like with a lot of phenotypical characteristics like skin color and hair color and eyebrow color, preferences play a larger role in iris color being attractive than say a jawline. Whereas with the jawline, there is a fixed standard and it's very hard to negotiate away from that. But with eye colors, a lot of people have different preferences, and again with skin colors as well. People have different preferences. There is no one skin color being better than the other because these are phenotypical characteristics. Dark skin is good in one region, light skin is good in another region. Lighter eyes are good in one region, darker eyes are good in another region. There is no evolutionary advantage to a certain eye color. For instance, a defined forward-grown jaw will almost always be chosen as more attractive than a downward recessed jaw with a lot of facial fat, for example, and we made that video to prove so. But we cannot extrapolate these results of the studies and say something like cheekbones and how high or low they are purely subjective in how they affect facial attractiveness, because we know that a certain cheekbone shape and size and position and a certain jaw size and position do unanimously across the world, across cultural beauty, do be taken as more attractive. When it comes to eye color, however, it does seem to be a unique facial feature in this respect, because even hair color has a large preferential swing. The eyes are so unique to us since the iris color is one of the most interpersonally variable and captivating colors in the human face. Some people have limbal rings, some people have mixtures of eye colors. It's something that we do take as a personal characteristic, more so than somebody owns their jawline, they own their eye color or their hair color, for example. It obviously receives a lot of societal attention for this reason, but people make the mistake of thinking that a certain eye color is more attractive, when in reality they're actually looking at the wrong characteristics altogether. They're looking at the youthfulness of the eyes. This is because a lot of people don't even know what the sclera is, so they don't really know what they're even looking at. So they see blue eyes with a lighter sclera and they assume that this must be more attractive without knowing what the reason for their decision is. For the average person, the eye area, or a judgment of the eye area, usually just boils down to your eye color, eyebrows, and eyelashes. There's nothing really wrong with that because we're not all scientists, but being able to discern prejudice from reality does help when trying to assess attractiveness. Further research does need to be done on this topic, especially as it relates to the rarity of certain eye colors and ethnic groups. For example, having lighter eyes in an ethnic group where people typically have darker eyes could make you stand out for better reasons. But then the secondary question has to be asked, how does standing out from the tribe, your tribe around you, actually benefit you in an evolutionary context? Because you generally don't want to stand out too much to the point where it puts you at a disadvantage. Is it that benefit that you get from having colored eyes in a region of not colored eyes? Is that because of social influence? Is that because of European colonialism? Or is it because of an evolutionary advantage, of which we can argue that there probably isn't one? That's why I say eye colors are overhyped. People don't really know what they're looking at. They don't really understand the nuances of what makes a face attractive. They see a specific color and it does have some elements that can make it more preferential than other colors, and that could be the scleral color. The darkness or the yellowness of that sclera is significant. We know that because it's linked to health related indicators. Even if you're perfectly fine, if you have a yellowish sclera, it could make it again look like you have jaundice or hepatitis. There are disadvantages to that, but people wrongly associate that with blue eyes or green eyes as being the only ones capable of having perfectly clear sclera. Now, with that being said, if you'd like to get your eye area assessed by a team of doctors and dentists in a very professional way, then you can head over to the Coo's website and order an aesthetics assessment. We'll also be on TikTok and you can catch us there as well.